All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Jazakallah khair for tuning in today. Today we have a very special program. We have Dr. Imran Siddiqui here with us. As for those of we share the same last name, brothers in Islam, and we get a lot of confusing calls from a lot of nurses as well. Alhamdulillah, Brother Imran, he's got a lot of experience taking care of coronavirus patients in the current pandemic. I'll let him do the introductions, but he's been featured in the paper a couple times with a few stories, and has been active in the scene at Desert Valley Hospital, and we both work in the Victorville area. So inshallah, we're just here to have a quick chat, a conversation about what it's like being on the front lines, and kind of tying that in with being Muslim physicians on the front lines and how that's impacted us at our workplace. So inshallah, we hope that this is a fruitful discussion for all of you and for us as well. So without further ado, Dr. Imran, if you want to give a quick introduction about your practice and primary mode of kind of caring for patients, and we'll kind of go from there.
Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulil Kareem. Amma ba'd. Best of praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek His blessings and we send our peace and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Hatim, for the kind introduction, and it's always nice seeing you. I see your name almost every day in the confusion, like you said, Dr. Siddiqui. It so happens that we work in the same area. Jazakallah khair. Just a little bit about myself. I do work in the high desert Victorville area. I live in Rancho Cucamonga, and I work out there. I do inpatient and outpatient practice, board certified internal medicine, originally from the East Coast, moved out here about 1.5 years ago. So alhamdulillah, it's very nice. The area is very different, the Victorville area, but alhamdulillah, we try to make it work. As far as what we've been seeing recently is that, yes, when this pandemic started about a little over 2 months ago, we didn't know what to expect. There was, it was just very strange. Like all of a sudden, I still remember when the whole pandemic had started in China, my wife and I, we were actually in Singapore. And at that time, there was about, I think, 8 cases. I remember when we landed in Singapore of confirmed coronavirus. And the day that we landed back at LAX, there was, I think they said 4 or 5 cases. That was the beginning of February 9th, if I'm not mistaken. And it so happened when we're in Singapore, we were watching the news and we hear that the plane is landing for the Americans at Ontario. We're like, oh my God, what's the likelihood that they land at Ontario airport? But subhanAllah, I would say that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it's been a learning lesson for all of us. And first and foremost, our qadr is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know that that everything is created with decree. Nothing can happen without the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think to say that, it just so happened and something, of course, there's no contradiction between science and modern medicine. It's all about how we understand it and how we take it. But this is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the decree that He has given us, and we try to make the most of it. And one thing that, that struck me, and it made me reflect on, and I was talking to a couple of my friends, subhanAllah, anything that happens in life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a message for us. Anything that happens in life, it's about us to really sit down and really reflect on what the message is. And I'm sure people have taken different messages from this. The message that I think I took from this is that at the end of the day, no scientist, no physician, no superpower of the world, no one can do anything except the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, if you really, we get to learn the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's the most powerful, He's able to do anything and everything, that no one can really do anything, and He changed the whole world with something that we can't even see. And it's something that it's just not us as Muslims. I was talking to a lot of my friends that are non-Muslims, which are faith and the belief of God, and they say, really, that no one can do anything, so this is the belief of God.
Yeah, subhanallah. I think I agree with a lot of the sentiments that you're saying. I think this is a really a good reminder for all of us as Muslims that sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and we think we know as much and we can get people better, especially as physicians. We think we see something, we can fix it, we give a medicine, and they're better. And then this came along, and not only do we not know much about it, we don't really know a great way to treat it. And and some patients, alhamdulillah, they get better, and some don't. And then that's like you said, it's the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He brought the world to its knees with
Exactly.
a simple thing. And I think that was and for us as Muslims, as physicians, I think that it brought it more into focus because Ramadan was just right like in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to ask you what was kind of your experience during Ramadan, with the pandemic. Obviously we talked about it's been talked about a lot that the masjids have been closed, but just being in the hospital during Ramadan, wearing all the PPE and all the stuff and all of the gowns can be like suffocating and just hot and sweaty. And there was questions about getting dehydrated, things like that. How was your workflow and spirituality kind of affected with everything that went on during Ramadan?
So, I mean, naturally, this was a very different Ramadan. Ramadan that probably people have never experienced before. I mean, in my lifetime, we've never seen Ramadan. Ramadan for us was always, having iftar with everyone, going to the masjid so I try to go every night or whenever as much as we can go, and being engaged with the community as much. So it was very, very different. Me specifically, personally, just a personal thing that I've been doing the last few years of my practice, that I try to take a good portion of Ramadan off. Not because of that, not, maybe I'm making more ibadah or so, just to take it easy. I would say maybe some laziness on my part also. Just don't want to wake up early, around in the hospital so early. So I usually try to take a few weeks off in Ramadan, if not the whole thing. And this was probably my first Ramadan that I worked the whole Ramadan. And the reason for that was probably I did not want, for two reasons. I did not want to make my colleagues feel that, oh, it's Ramadan, you're just gonna, go away from the front lines. That's one thing. The other thing was also that being in some type of leadership within the hospital, when you're dealing with, we're having daily COVID task force meetings every morning, and then one fine day, you're just like, well, I'm not coming anymore for 30 days, or I'm not going to come for so often. It just sets a bad example. And then, alhamdulillah, in the Muslim community, we have a good chunk of Muslim providers, let it be doctors, nurses, PAs, NPs, respiratory technicians. If all of us just decided to do the same thing, that let's all take off Ramadan, I mean, it would not be. It's not possible, right? So I would say this Ramadan was tough. There was days I would say that alhamdulillah, till now we were trying to fast every day, and there was days this Ramadan, I'll be honest, that I wasn't able to fast. It got a little extra for me. The headaches. I still remember it was one Saturday I was rounding on patients, and I was just like, it's a terrible headache. I just can't do it. And that's when you stop and you really think, okay, siyam or fasting is an obligation. There's no doubt about it. This is a core, it's an obligation. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, when He says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُم, that we've written fasting, when He says written fasting before you, what did He say afterwards? The ones who are traveling, the ones who are sick, are the ones who are unable to fast for whatever reasons, that they can let go of their fasting and make it up, make qada afterwards. And I was talking to one of my teachers, and I said that. And he said, Imran, no doubt, if you feel that you're not fasting, and that's a good sign, you feel you're not doing an obligation. But at the same time, the reason you're not doing it is why? To save life, right? And Islam, salah and zakat and siyam is on one hand, of course. There's no doubt these are core fun. But saving life takes precedence, in a lot of scholars' opinions, because you're saving the life to do that. Now, naturally, you're not going to let go of fasting and that completely, I'm working, I'm a physician. Absolutely not. But if there's a reason that day that you feel that, your judgment may be impaired and it may affect patients, then, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You have to let go of fasting to save life, and that takes precedence.
Sure. I think I think you brought some very important points, and one of them, what I was reminded, when you said will every Muslim take off during Ramadan? What's going to happen to the healthcare force?
Mhm.
I have a cousin who's in the nursing, who works in New York as a nurse, as an ICU nurse. And they sent her home, when there was, question of if she was, COVID positive or not. But she, alhamdulillah, came back COVID negative. But she went right back to work after that. And some of the family members were like, you should take off. You should take off. And some of that is that moral responsibility of like taking care of patients. Is we have something to offer, and this is the greatest time of need for us to be available for our patients. And I think that says a lot. Us as Muslims, we always try to practice ihsan in all that we do, excellence in all that we do. This is prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the best that we can do. And I think you balance that very well with saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very merciful, and that, if there are times where it becomes overwhelming for us, that, there are exceptions made within the religion for us. Walk us through a little bit about how like a typical work day has been for you, and how that's kind of changed with the pandemic, and what kind of different procedures have been put in place in the hospital for you.
So actually, before that, I want to bring up one point also, even when it comes to salah, prayer. Prayer, is ibadat, it's the mother of all worships, it's the most important, and we know the one who leaves prayer, is, according to some scholars, that, they let go of prayer is like letting go of Islam and stuff like that. So like, for example, in the winter time, when the time is so short between Dhuhr and Asr, like, as physicians, we're rounding like in the morning, 11, 12 o'clock, then all of a sudden we're trying to do our discharges and we get 1 or 2 admissions, and the time just goes by, and the next thing you know, it's Asr time. Yeah. So even in that case, in the winter time, if you're into the OR for surgeon, for example, then in the OR they're operating, they're not going to leave a scrub thing and go pray Dhuhr, then go scrub back up and pray Asr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this. So in that time, like, many times for myself also, I would combine my Dhuhr and Asr, or pray at the end of Dhuhr, beginning of Asr. So it's the same thing that applies. Now again, am I a faqih? Am I thinking? Absolutely not. This is from what we got from our scholars and from our teachers from that. As far as the day-to-day, what's there? First and foremost, every morning we would have a task force meeting, because the rules would change so often. We were getting new information from CDC, getting new information from county health. So what's actually happening? So every morning we would have a task force meeting, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and this would include all the senior members of the hospital leadership, our director of nursing, chief nursing officer, our administrators, some of the physicians, and basically we would run through every single department of the hospital. We would go from supply chain to see how many masks do we have. Is there a back order of masks? How many, even the most minute of things, how many of the hand sanitizers on the wall have been refilled, and how many of them need to be refilled? Okay. When we were deciding, does everyone need to wear a mask in the hospital, or does everyone not need to wear a mask in the hospital? So that would go on for about an hour. Then we would go see our patients, obviously. So initially what we were doing was, the physicians, we said, well, okay, look, so we have all these COVID patients. Now, are they positive? They're negative? Allah, we don't know yet, right? And initially when we were sending out the tests, they were going to, I think, one of the labs in the East Coast. It was taking me a week to get back.
Same as
Yeah, exactly. And that's if the patient got swabbed and stuff, right?
Correctly or not, yeah.
Exactly. So now we have a whole bunch of patients that come in with shortness of breath, right? So before this COVID thing, there would be other simple things that we would think about first, like heart failure, for example, or simple pneumonia or influenza. So now all of a sudden, wait, is this COVID? And we didn't even know in the beginning, is it airborne related? Is it droplet? Do we wear a surgical mask? Do we wear an N95? Wait, do I stand 6 feet? Do I even auscultate? Do I even listen to the patient's heart? Or then initially there were some providers that were so scared in the ICUs, there would be a glass door. They would like, just tell the patient to pick up the phone. I'm going to talk on the phone. Because we didn't know. No one knew, right? There was no right answer. So we would round on our patients. For me and for a lot of us, we said, look, first of all, we're not going to wear the same clothes that we're wearing. Before, we'd wear pants, shirt, go to the hospital very casually. We would come back home. Then I started going to all scrubs, right? So everyday scrubs, round on our patients. Then I do outpatient clinic. And we said, well, we can't do outpatient clinic because we're just exposing more people, first of all, on the streets. Second of all, what if there's a patient in the hospital that we see where, transmitting there. So we transitioned to telemedicine, telehealth. So we would just set up appointments, do webcams, and see our patients in a telehealth way. After that, before going home, whenever that would be, I would make it a point to go to the OR, change out the scrubs, throw the old scrubs there, wear new scrubs, come back home. As soon as I enter, my wife would be like, leave your shoes at the door, leave everything at the door, and go straight to the shower. There used to be a towel ready there, because obviously the fear of getting this contaminating everyone else.
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of the similar sentiments that you're saying. Another challenge I think that I've found in the hospital is this no visitor policy.
Yes.
And the patients are really suffering from not being able to see their family members. And, we see a lot of patients who either their phones are dead, they're not able to see their family. I mean, we have the blessing of FaceTime, but a lot of patients, either don't have a phone or don't have access, to even see their family members. And, I can remember a few patients that I had that were in their final moments, and we kind of just transitioned them to comfort care and kind of keeping them comfortable. And their families weren't able to be there, in those last moments, or they're too far to be there right at that moment. And we have to use an iPad that was, provided to us by the hospital, and show the patient, and kind of so that they can at least have that sort of connection. So I think that adds a sort of another responsibility on all of us as physicians, is to try and put ourselves in in our patients' shoes, and spend a little extra time with them, and talk with them, because sometimes that little interaction is like the most interaction they're going to get throughout the day. And that reminded me of actually a story that you had in the paper with the patient that you had that had a birthday in the hospital, and you brought you brought some things to kind of commemorate that. And I think those little things are important for all physicians to do, but especially as Muslim physicians, we should be able to try to take that step extra to keeping our patients, not just caring for them in the hospital medically, but socially, and kind of keeping their mental health in focus, and our mental health as well, with all of this outbreak.
Yeah, I think that's, like you said, Shahideen, that's very, very important, because the thing is, like, just imagine yourself, and it's kind of like, this really went into perspective for me when my grandmother, who lives on the East Coast, she calls me one day in the middle of all of this, and we talk every day and stuff, and she said, Imran, I heard hospitals are not allowing any visitors. I said, yeah, that's true. And she said, just imagine, and the word she said, she goes, imagine the people that are dying in the hospital, they're all alone. And I have a fear of being in the hospital. And subhanAllah, and it really made me think at that time, because, as Muslims, we believe, the time of death, we want everyone to be around, everyone's saying the shahada to us, and, everyone is, telling us, comforting words, regardless the person can hear or they can't hear. And that's what we, normally see. So now, all of a sudden, you have someone that's just passing away in the hospital with the door closed. God knows if anyone is there, maybe a nurse is there, maybe the doctor is rounded. I mean, who knows, And the final moments of death are all alone. I mean, just put it into perspective, subhanAllah. And may Allah protect all of us, and may Allah, protect us from this calamity. I mean, but just no visitors allowed, and just being let's step away from that even, and let's think about the people that are sick in the hospital that are just in their bed. The people that are, for example, even quarantining at home. You have your cell phone, fine. You're going to talk to your relatives, you'll talk to your family, you'll FaceTime them and stuff, but just being stuck in a room. Okay. And if you don't have, and especially our elderly patients, from different backgrounds that don't speak English, that don't know how to use a smartphone, that don't know how to, FaceTime or WhatsApp or something, and they don't watch TV because, the TV's in English, whatever background they're from, they're just stuck in a room, and that's it. And days are just going by like that. And it's scary. It's very, very scary. We saw videos of, physicians and, healthcare providers that basically did their final moments of their life on FaceTime with their family. And that's it. And even after that, even when they, if they were to pass away, even during their last rites or their funeral and stuff, that only 4 or 5 people were able to go bury them, and that from a distance. And subhanAllah, the janazah wasn't able to be prayed upon them. And inshallah, they're from the shuhada. Allah, in the akhirah, they're from the shaheed. There's no doubt about that. But still, psychological thing that the family will remember for the rest of their life.
Right. It's not just, we focus on the patient, but it's for the family members as well, of just not being able to see their family members in the hospital. And, like you said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. But that's certainly something that we've been having to deal with these new rules, with the isolation rules. Given that we, kind of touched on that topic a little bit about all of these tough situations that we deal with in the hospital. How have you kind of balanced that with kind of family life and your own mental health, with trying to compartmentalize, a certain part of your day with another part of your day? Everybody has their own kind of way to deal with this. We all, as physicians, even during our residency and things, have different ways of coping. For me, what works is just kind of just leave work at work and kind of just be at home and just try to forget what goes on during the day. But that's always not healthy, because that sometimes piles up and you're not able to kind of handle those emotions. I'm interested to know what kind of things you've used to kind of treat your mental health and kind of make sure that you're staying sane through all of this.
To be honest, I'm probably the worst person to ask this question. I'm the last person that leaves work at work, so my phone is constantly going off between the hospital, the nursing homes, and outpatient clinic and stuff. But no, you're right. Mental health is so important, and I'm sure everyone has seen the story of the ER doctor in New York. That unfortunately, she took her own life. But mental health itself is, it's huge. It's, for physicians, it's huge. Also, it's for everyone, it's huge. And, this false saying, and it really, it really irritates me and really, annoys me, that when we hear people in the community say, there's no such thing as having depression, there's no such thing as having anxiety, you have weak iman, brother. Wallahi, Dr. Khatib, that's a lie. It's a big lie. Not only are they lying to themselves, they're lying to that person. And even Islamically, we know that they're lying. Because we know the famous hadith of when the Prophet ﷺ went to the masjid and he saw the one sahabi in the middle of the day that was sitting there, and he said, "Oh, so why are you here during the day?" It was something that he said, "Oh, I have so much debt and this and that." He said, "Let me teach you a few words. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wal-'ajzi wal-kasal wal-bukhli wal-jubn wal-darad faqam rijal." So if that wasn't the case, the Prophet ﷺ would have said, read Quran. Did he say go read Quran? Did he say go make salah and stuff? And no doubt, spirituality, there's no contradiction between spirituality and mental issues. Okay, what spirituality does really, from what I heard from one of the psychologists, is that all spirituality does is it just teaches us how to deal with these issues. Okay, so just coming home and reading Quran or spending your nights in tahajjud, great, Allah accept from you. This is a great act of ibadah, there's no doubt about it. But does that always help your mental well-being? Maybe not, probably not. Yeah, no doubt Quran, the book of Allah, is azim and stuff like that, and that it'll soothe your heart and stuff, but you still have to take care of your mental well-being. And maybe you have to seek therapy for it. And I think that's one taboo in our community, not just with physicians, with everyone, but that we don't seek the appropriate help that we need. If you need someone to talk to, then you need someone to talk to. A big problem, a challenge that the physicians faced, Muslims and non-Muslims, during this time was that they were isolated from their families. A lot of my colleagues had sent their families, their wife, their kids, or their spouses, their husbands, and stay with their families or in-laws or extended relatives, and they were home all alone. So just imagine, going to the hospital, you're rounding on patients, you don't know so-and-so patient may expire or they may be alive, and then you have the mental stress, the toll that it takes on us as healthcare providers, that having a patient that might not make it, thinking, did we fail on our part as a healthcare provider, and then just not having anyone to talk to. So for me, I think the most important was just having someone to speak to, and it's just someone understanding, someone is reassuring, and someone there to give advice.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Even though you said you're the worst person to ask, but you gave good advice. But I think you brought up some good points. This, the importance of talking to somebody and letting out your emotions is paramount. And then you also mentioned dhikr. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he taught the sahabi, a dhikr to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with, and to place your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes, sometimes we truly don't have anybody, but we always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We always can listen to Allah's words, and we can also speak with Allah through our prayers. And so that keeping that in mind and keeping that constant, inshallah, helps us out on those situations.
Absolutely.
Have you had, at Sahaba Initiative, a lot of the focus as on helping people in low income situations, and obviously we know the ramifications that the economy has had with the economic shutdown, with food availability and jobs and things like that. Have you had any experience with patients who are in that low income situation? What kind of unique challenges they may pose in the current pandemic in the hospital, or if they're sicker, or generally what's been your experience with that?
So, I mean, yeah, in the area that we're in, and you know very well, we do have a low socioeconomic population where we are. And yes, it is a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge. And unless we accept that it's a challenge, we won't be able to overcome this challenge. And us as the Muslim community, I think that this is where we really need to step in. Healthcare providers, non-healthcare providers, in every capacity that we're able to. I think that the challenge that we need to understand with the low socioeconomic population is that a lot of the patients and their family live in joint families. It's a 2-bedroom house or 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom. So now one has coronavirus. They come to the hospital, and what do we tell them? Quarantine. Initially, what was the thing? Quarantine yourself, isolate yourself in the room, right? So how are they supposed to isolate themselves in 2 bedrooms, 3 or 4 kids, or maybe 2 kids, who knows, in 1 bathroom? How is that possible? I mean, like, that just 1-year-old child is going to be running to their mother or their father, trying to be in their lap. And how is that possible? And we can't tell them go take a hotel. I mean, they barely have money to pay for their rent or for their food. Who knows? But those are the challenges that they face. I mean, that these barriers, other barriers, that healthcare insurance, that every medication is not generic. Fine, you can go to Walmart and get your $4 medications, but what about your other medication that they need? What if they need an inhaler? What if they need a nebulizer?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
or oxygen or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. Oxygen is huge. Yeah, you're right. Oxygen is huge. Oxygen tank. Where are they supposed to get it from? If you discharge a patient with oxygen, you don't have health insurance. Where are you supposed to get it from?
Right.
Even if you take small little wheelchair, a simple wheelchair or walker. Okay, and we have patients that are in the hospital. Their discharges are held up. Literally, we don't have a safe discharge plan. Dr. Atim, very well. These are big hurdles that we face. We don't have a safe discharge plan. Why? Because there's no wheelchair at home.
Right.
They can't walk. They walk from the door to the bathroom. They get winded. They get short of breath. Yeah. So these are things that I think, as the Muslim community, where we can step in. For example, simple example, wheelchairs. If we take initiative, we'll say, okay, every month, so-and-so person will donate 10 used wheelchairs, or 5 walkers, or 10 walkers, okay? And seeing what the community really needs. And then we have patients in the hospital that don't even have a ride to get home. Yeah, the hospital will provide a taxi voucher. The insurance may provide a taxi voucher and stuff, but little things like that. Or the thing is, they're coming to their follow-up appointment. How are they going to get to their follow-up appointment? They barely have enough money for food. Do you think they're worried about a follow-up appointment?
Right. I think a lot of these challenges existed before the pandemic, and they just kind of became amplified during all of this because of everything that's going on, at the government level. But I think you brought up some good points with the family situations at home. I had a patient actually that came to the hospital, that elderly patient who was COVID positive, but didn't have very many symptoms, but the family was very hesitant about taking her home because they've got 10 other people at home. She has 7 kids at home, and she's taking care of them, and she can't, and then you tell them to quarantine. They've only got 1 room. How do you address that situation? And so a lot of that, a lot of those patients and a lot of the system has been now burdened with the nursing home. And, this is kind of a second option for sending these patients who are kind of in between, who can't be kind of taken care of at home in the best way, but can't really stay in the hospital because we need to free up beds for more patients and more sick patients. So the nursing home has kind of hit that kind of gap in the middle, and they've kind of always been in that kind of weird situation. But again, like I said before, the whole COVID-19 has racked up that situation. Now I know that we both round in the nursing homes, and I think you're the medical director of one of the nursing homes up in the high desert. What has that experience been like in the nursing home?
So I think the thing is that, nursing home itself, I think that at times it could be a very luxurious thing, because that's a patient of ours. And we all see both of us see very often is that they don't have family, they just can't take care of themselves. They can't go home. Okay, so we can skill them, for rehab, deconditioning, they can go to the nursing home. Good, alhamdulillah, excellent, wonderful, right? But what about the patient that is 60, 70 years old that doesn't have health insurance? So they can't go to the nursing home.
Yeah.
Where are they supposed to go? Yeah. What do we do at that point? So the nursing home is, if they have health insurance and they need, that extra time to, just get rehabilitation, they're deconditioned, they need to, work on some therapy and stuff, alhamdulillah, greater IV antibiotics and so great. Now, even in the nursing home, the nursing home that I go to, that no visitors. So actually, it's funny. Today is Thursday. This was on Tuesday. I was going there to see a patient. So as I was leaving, they had a husband and wife. They were visitors. I think they were visiting their family. So they wheeled the patient to the lobby. These people went to the window. So now from the window, they're talking to each other. Right? So I'm just thinking, I really hope the patient was not hearing impaired or something. And at least just, alhamdulillah, they're able to see their face and they're okay, you're fine, we're fine, everything's good and stuff. But who knows what they're saying? Who knows what they're saying? And so we still don't allow any visitors because, they do a temperature check, they put a mask on and stuff, but there's just no compliance 100%.
Yeah, and even I go to the other nursing home actually has a no doctors policy as well.
I heard about that. Yeah,
telemedicine with those patients. So some of the care becomes a little bit fragmented as well. You kind of worry if things are getting done the correct way, and you don't have an eagle eye on what's going on, and so that adds to some of the challenges I think that we're
absolutely facing. Because what you're saying, I'm very familiar. My colleague was telling me, because if you had a patient there, for example, let's say with some wound on the foot or something, and now you go once, when you go to round on the patient, now you're not even able to see the wound. So now what are they doing? They're taking a picture and they're sending it to you, or they're trying to send FaceTime. Now, that day the lighting is not good. Is there good granulation tissue? There's not. I mean, like you said, it's very fragmented. And I think in this whole pandemic, one of the things that's happening is that we are unfortunately letting go or missing all the other health conditions, shortness of breath, COVID, corona, yes, absolutely, it may be, but what about their congestive heart failure? What about their pneumonia? What about their COPD? We're just forgetting about that.
Well, you brought up a good point. I actually had a patient that, we thought he was corona and we had him in isolation all day. He came back negative, but he came back, subhanAllah, with metastatic cancer. And I gave him the bad news of that, and he said, "Well, at least I don't have coronavirus." And it just goes to show you what's on our minds, like what's the most thing that we kind of fear. And I think that echoes to your statement is that a lot of people who need that care in the hospital are not coming to the hospital simply because of that fear, and they need that care absolutely, but they're not, for whatever reason, for whether it's fear or whether it's paranoia or whatever is going on, they're not able to access that. And I know that your clinic is open. Our clinics are closed. We've been doing telemedicine, and a lot of people are not getting the same care that we are, and we're hurrying towards the phase 2 and phase 3 to kind of reopen and try to get back to taking care of the hundreds of other diseases that also flare up during this time. But inshallah, things will hopefully smooth out sooner rather than later.
You're right. And like you said, the patients are just not coming because of the fear. One of my patients, he has renal failure, stage, I would say 4 or 5. And we were doing televisits and stuff. And I said, you really got to come into the hospital. He comes in shortness of breath, and I just so happened I wasn't in. I was in the ER that day. I was in the hospital, so they called me and said, "Hey, one of your patients here," and he was in isolation. I said, "Look, guys, this guy's been quarantined at home for 2 months. I know him very well. He's just very fluid overloaded,
Yeah.
And we ended up starting him dialysis because he just waited so long to come in that we just couldn't, we ended up taking, I think, like 3 liters off of him, I believe, initially. So it was, what can we do?
Yeah, subhanAllah. I think we were going a little bit over time, but this has been a very interesting conversation. It could probably continue for another, however long. So I think we touched a lot of points. I don't know if you have a general message to the community. A lot of people are anxious about reopening and also reopening the masajid and things like that. I don't know if you have what I like to tell my family is I don't think anybody's a real expert on coronavirus. We're kind of going with the flow. But do you have any kind of parting words for the community, everybody, all the listeners and everybody, just on what's going on or what's to come?
I mean, like I mentioned, first of all, I think there's a fear, and that's natural, and that's fine. That's fear. But at the end of the day, I think we have to really truly understand whatever happens with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Now, at the same time, we tie our camel, and then we have to tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we can't live in fear. Okay. We have to understand that this is whatever, if it's meant to be, something is going to happen. Okay. But we use our precaution. And I think the basic precautions, okay, of, hand washing, don't touch your hands to your face, don't wash your hands before you eat, avoid contact with, not avoid, actually don't have any contact with these sick people. If you're sick, use common sense. Please don't expose anyone else. Seek appropriate help from medical professionals if you're sick. And, not only are you protecting yourself, you're protecting someone else. And this is also a type of sadaqah, that you're helping, you're protecting someone else. And I would say as far as the opening of the masajid, that's big. I think a lot of people are anxious about that. And my personal opinion, look, Ramadan went by. The month that we're the closest to the masajid, right? And that went by. Did that make us any less Muslim? No. What did that do? That made us really reflect upon our personal spirituality and try to bring the spirituality to our homes the best we could do. Okay? And many people, they were able to do more ibadah this month than they would have been with the masajid there. Because, even for iftars, we sit in the car, we go to iftar 45 minutes away, so that 45 minutes is gone. We come back home, we're too tired to go to tarawih and stuff. So I think as far as the masajid will open when it's safe. Okay? And let it be. Okay, does that mean you can't be Muslim and in your home? You can't pray your 5 daily prayers. You can't have, listen. Everything's online these days. You have your lectures and everything online. And even when the masajid do open, does that mean every single Muslim has to be there on that first Friday to pray Jum'ah prayer? And it's not for me to answer, that's for the scholars to answer. But if you're going to protect someone else, or even that 1% chance you have a little cough or some sore throat and stuff, then use your common sense. If they stay at home, wear a mask. If you go out, give your social distancing, all of the things that the health authorities are recommending. We have to follow. As a Muslim, we have to follow all the rules and regulations, right? Because as long as it doesn't go against the Sharia, we are obligated as a Muslim to follow every rule and regulation that is set forth for the government. Why? Because it's benefit for us and for the community at large. And if we are able to understand, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make things easy for us.
Inshallah. Definitely a lot of good advice. Jazakallah khair for your time, Dr. Imran. Allah protect you and your family and bless you, continue to bless you and increase you. I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in today. Inshallah, Sahaba Initiative, we should have some more programs coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. We'll end on a dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us all of our sins and protect us, during this pandemic, and take this away from us as soon as possible, and allow us to return to our loved ones and back to the masajid so that we can worship him in the best of ways. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanallah azim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq, wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.